Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect scattered amongst the four corners of the earth, as well as the elect themselves. I don't know who you are, but shalom to you. I hope that I am of the elect. I've had my personal call from the Heavenly Father Yahawah through his son Yahawashi, through the Holy Spirit, and I hope that I am of the elect. Okay, this video is going to be in reference to a video that the brother GMS South Carolina 08 did a couple of days ago. Today is Thursday, the 11th of June, 2026. So he did this back on the 9th, which was on Tuesday, or it was either Monday or Tuesday, but I'll put the video that he did in the description box of this video that I'm doing now. In reference to Esau, the so-called white man, and Moab, the so-called Chinese, was talking big cash money shit and boasting about how that one Asian store owner got off for shooting and killing that young little teenage Israelite kid, a little so-called Negro kid, right? And how they're boasting and exalting themselves beyond what they should, considering the nature of their circumstances, and how the Lord, pursuing the Job 9:24, says the earth is given into the hand of the wicked, which is the self-proclaimed so-called white man. The Lord gave them the right to rule this world, to punish us for being idolatrous, and worshiping other gods and idols, pursuant to Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15, which reads, "But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord, YAHAWAH BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI, thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee." Now I'm going to jump down to verse, where is it at? Verse 43, which reads, "The stranger that is within thee shall get above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low." Which is, how the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans live in, they got us in the hoods, the barrios, and in the reservations, very deplorable conditions, where the heathens surround us round about, where the so-called white man owns the properties and the banks, and they're like slumlords, and the so-called East Indians and the so-called Arabs run the convenience stores and the hotels, and then the so-called Chinese and Japanese run those restaurants where they serve that fucked up food. Reading on verse 44, "He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail." And that's how the people in this video that GMS South Carolina put up, that I'm gonna have in the description box, they have that mentality, like, man, we're above and better than you, because in this life right now, in this captivity, yeah, they are. You know what I mean? But it's not because Esau Edom, the so-called white man, it's not because they are a better built people than us. No, the Lord set them up over us to punish us for what I just read to you in Deuteronomy chapter 28, for not hearkening unto the voice of the Lord thy God. And what proves that too, right here, is Daniel chapter 4, verses 17, which reads, "This matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basis of men," which is Esau Edom. All right. Now, I believe this is Job chapter 30, verses 8 to further back that up, which reads, this is Job talking about Esau Edom. Matter of fact, I'm going to go a couple verses up. Oh, shit. I'm going to start at verse 1. Wow. But now this is Job talking about the Edomites, because he was living around them and amongst them in his day. Job chapter 30, verse 1. "But now they that are younger than I have me in derision, whose fathers I would have disdained to have set with the dogs of my flock. Yea, whereto might the strength of their hands profit me, in whom old age was perished? For want and famine they were solitary, fleeing into the wilderness, in former time desolate and waste." And that's Esau Edom, the so-called white man, because they have that caveman history that for some stupid reason they boast about in museums and on documentary shows. Reading on verse 4, who cut up mallows by the bushes and juniper roots for their meat. They were driven forth from among men. They cried after them as after a thief. Now, that was back in the ancient world, but in today's time, people, what they control the media, but these other nations, like over there in Western Asia, was known, or Western, it was known as Africa. Them people don't want to do business with Esau Edom because they see that he's a thief. All right. Verse 6, it says, to dwell in the clefts of the valleys, that's up in the Caucasus Mountains, in caves of the earth and in the rocks, among the bushes they braid. So when you bray, you're braying like a donkey, or you kind of like make grunts. And that goes to that caveman era that they had. And it wasn't millions of years ago. It was like 1,000 years ago, if that long ago. Reading on, it says, under the nettles they were gathered together. They were children of fools, yea, children of base men. They were viler than the earth. So a lot of these people, these so-called white people on these YouTube videos that GMS South Carolina be finding, they talking from a standpoint of they ain't been no goddamn where, probably outside of their own town, and they don't know their true history. All right. So, these dudes they're pretty prideful, but they don't know that they are the basis of men. Out of all the 18 nations the Most High created, we, the nation of Israel, are the sons of the power. And then you have 16 heathen nations that are known as the sons of men. And then Esau Edom, the so-called white man, the Edomites, are the sons of the wicked. All right. So, and this dude, and he was talking from a lot, and because they've been over us for the past 500 years, in particular here in America, they have this God complex, and they really have it now with this technology and how they're trying to establish their new world Edomite order, where they wish to implant the RFID microchip into everyone's body to fully enslave them. And if the people who received the microchip, who made a conscious decision to get the microchip, then they will be ostracized from society and/or killed. And this is and these are the plans that the Edomites have. And because the Most High's got them in a trick bag into believing that they're gonna rule forever, this is how they think. This is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verses. I'm gonna start at verse 3. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. And that's Esau Edom, the so-called white man. Here's the main point about their ego and their pride right here. Verse 4, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Now, Elon Musk just made a statement about a week or two ago saying that the microchip will have Jesus-level powers. Now, what he meant by that, for those of you who can see it with the spiritual eye, it's like Esau Edom sees himself as God, and he sees the microchip as a way to save them from losing power and running this world by enslaving everyone with that microchip. All right. So that's hence why he made that statement. It will have Jesus-like powers, but they're going to present it to the masses as, oh, well, they got an article where they say that you'll be able to download the ability of the shooting ability of like Steph Curry or something like that. And that's the Trojan horse. That's the bow and the ribbon and the pretty colors. But what it really is a means for Esau Edom in his mind to stay as the rulers of this world, and the chip saves them from losing their power, because now they're going to put in everyone and enslave everyone with. I'm going to jump down to verse 8. And then shall that wicked be revealed, which is happening in today's time, which began with Rabbi Abba Bivens last century in the 1960s, and all the way until today's time via Elder Apostle Tahar on down, who the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and that's the prophets, beginning with Elder Apostle Tahar on down of GMS, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders. Now, an example of Esau Edom's lying wonders, besides his bullshit talk, he now has the AI, where he can make videos that would seem real, but they're AI generated. All right. And that's a part of his lying wonders. They just did a video, an AI video of a so-called Negro man in the Las Vegas casino claiming like he's winning, all the time. But it's got like those certain like telltale signs of them AI videos where he was where it's fake. Because in one point of the video, he was in the casino, but he had his shirt off. It's like, well, why the fuck you got your shirt off in the casino? You know what I mean? But when he had his shirt off, he had a tribal tattoo on his left arm, which Esau can use. Esau put that in there to try to make people subconsciously think about Dwayne the Rock Johnson. But the point is they're trying to perpetrate like, Jake is cool with having a microchip in him, which is bullshit. Let's see what I'm not. Fast. So that's what, and that ties in, and that lying wonder is going to lead to this right here, Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 to 18. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark of the name of the beast or the number of his image. But going back to, I know I'm kind of all over the place, it's the spirit. But going back to the video about what Esau and Moab was talking about in that video done by GMS South Carolina about the so-called white men and so-called Chinese talking shit and feeling themselves. Them other 16 or 17, those 17 heathen nations are jealous of us. All right. Hence why they'll steal our swag and take our inventions and then shoo us off in the corner somewhere, like in the hood or in the reservations or in the barrios, and then claim that they came up with the inventions themselves, which is total bullshit. This is James chapter 3, verses 16. For where envying and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work. And that's what these heathens are doing, man. They have evil works that they apply to us to kill us off. You know what I'm saying? And they want to fully do away with us, pursuant to Psalms the 83rd chapter, where it talks about the heathen nations making a tumult and being confederate against us, saying, "Come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance." And here's a testament to how they that they fuck us up deliberately. This is Micah chapter 2, verse 1. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand. Verse 2. And that's talking about these mainly these rich elite families of those 17 heathen nations. For the Edomites, it's the Rothschilds. All right. Verse 2, and they covered fields and take them by violence. Now, how was America started? They took this place by violence. And they maintained, and this is a giant occupation, America, all right? And reading on it says, and take them by violence, and houses, and take them away. Now, they did take away some of the so-called Native Americans, Seminole Indians, and Mexicans during the transatlantic slave trade, when they brought the southern kingdom here, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, over there to Virginia. Before they set sail back over to Spain and Portugal, they rounded up some of the so-called Seminole Indians, Native Americans, and Mexicans and shipped them back over there. So that fulfills that, and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. So that's what these people have done. And that's why this dude is boasting and they talking big cash money shit. In this video, I'm going to put in the description box, which fits this prophecy right here of their pride. Psalms 49 and 11. Their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. They call their lands after their own name. Now, I done told you that they have a place here in America called Edom, Texas. EDOM. Remember, there was a city in ancient Edom called Bozrah. And they have a place in Connecticut called Bozrah, Connecticut, Bozrah. There was also an ancient city in the land of Edom called Uz, U-Z. That's how you spell it. And they have a Uz in Kentucky. And they have a Uz, Texas, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Um, bear with me here. So yeah, these dudes are these. I mean, these heathens. You know, they really feeling themselves. But as time goes on, the Most High is chipping away at them methodically and consistently. So, and now these curses are beginning to cleave upon them, because you got to see these Edomites that working 9 to 5 jobs, 60 hours a week. Their wife doing this shit too. They can barely afford to live. That's the shit that we had to go through. Well, we still going through. But the Lord's putting it on them. This is Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 7. And the Lord YAHAWAH BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI, thy God, will put all these curses upon thine enemies and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. And that's these goddamn heathens. Because right now we're on the bottom and they're on the top. Pursuing here to Jeremiah or Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 40. I'm going to read 15, because that's going to explain why we're underneath these curses right now. Verse 15 of Deuteronomy 28. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, YAHAWAH BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. And that's why we're in these deplorable conditions, But the Lord is bringing us out of this, or the elect out of this. Lord willing, I'm of that stock, because I've been called. I hope I'm of the chosen. And then jumping down to Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 43, it says, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. And that's these heathen nations, because you notice Esau Edom, he's here because he brought us over here during the transatlantic slave trade. But you notice the other heathen nations can come here, they can get loans, you know what I'm saying? They can set up shop with homes and houses, no problem, and feed us all that poison and that slop on a continual basis and make bank. Verse 44, it says, he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. So, we're at the bottom. And these heathens, beginning with Esau Edom, the so-called white man's at the top. Verse 45, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee and overtake thee. So even if we, we say fuck this and we leave America, Jake leaves America, the curses pursue them. So it doesn't matter where we are. We're just in a time of punishment right now. Reading on, it says, and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord YAHAWAH BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee. So that's why we're in the situation that we're in, the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American. Another pivotal point, or another important point right here, verse 46. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. So that's why, people, I mean, from a personal experience, it's like, how is it that I can tell I'm smarter and I was, blessed with better genetics than them, but yet I'm in this, and I'm seeing my people in this who were built strong and mentally and physically like me too. And this is why, because we're underneath the curses. So verse 48, it says, therefore thou shalt serve thine enemies, which the Lord YAHAWAH BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI shall send against thee. So these like the Edomite, the so-called white dude in the video, and the so-called Chinese dude, they don't know why they're above us. They think they're above us because they had the gusto or the moxie to outperform us mentally, but that's not the case. Because this is Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 48. Thou shalt serve thine enemies, which the Lord YAHAWAH BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he hath destroyed thee. So that's why we have to go to them for everything. Even though we have what it takes, even though our inventions are the fabric of this society, the heathens take it from us. Pursuant to that scripture that says, and made no account of his labors. And that's a part of the curses too. Just read the whole chapter of Deuteronomy 28. And it'll explain it to you. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee. How much time is left on that? The Lord, verses, what is this? Verse 49, the Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle. That's the so-called white dude that went over there and bartered with the so-called Arabs and Africans and brought us over here. A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. And that's why they were speaking in Spanish. And then they came up with that fucking English. So you Latin tribes, you think you better than the Southern Kingdom. When you speak Spanish, that is the slave master's language, just like English is. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of old, nor show favor to the young. And an example is like this video from GMS South Carolina of that so-called Asian, killing that little young Israelite kid. Which he didn't perish, he wasn't innocent, but at the same time they forwarded the affliction and they wouldn't let us go. As to why he was still in the condition to even get put to death, but as a part of the Lord's his judgment from the Lord. Let's see what else is in there. So yeah, that's the point, man. These heathens are above us because the Lord put these nations over us to punish us for not hearkening unto him, to his voice, which was the prophets of old, to tell us to follow him and his law, statutes, and commandments. So now we're being punished for it. But a lot of these heathen, these everyday heathens here in Babylon, they don't understand the history of things. They just think that they got it going on better than us. But the elite families of the 17 heathen nations know better, hence why they got bunkers, because they know that their world is going to be destroyed. And that's why they know that they're pressed for time to try to enjoy themselves before their kingdom is destroyed, and then they're going to be serving in captivity under YAHAWASHI in the house of David in the kingdom of heaven. So that's why the tiny tops are hogging all the glory from the everyday average Edomite. All right. So with that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to my power, YAHAWAH BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI. Lord willing, this was edifying. And I'll be able to do this again, Lord willing. But for now, I'm going to say, Shalom.